the worst outcome in the world is not having self-esteem. Why?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Well, I, I, I look at the people, and I don't want to offend anybody, but I look at the people who don't like themselves, and that's the toughest slot because they're always wrestling with themselves, and it's hard enough to face the outside world, and no one's gonna like you more than you like yourself. So if you're struggling with yourself, then the outside world becomes an insurmountable challenge. And it's hard to say why people have low self esteem. It might be genetic, it might just be circumstantial. A lot of times I think it's because they just weren't unconditionally loved as a child. And that sort of seeps in at a deep core level. But self esteem issues can be the most limiting. One interesting thought is that, to some extent, self esteem is a reputation you have with yourself. You're watching yourself at all times. You know what you're doing, and you have your own moral code. Everyone has a different moral code. But if you don't live up to your own moral code, the same code that you hold others to, it will damage your self esteem. So perhaps one way to build up your self esteem is to live up to your own code very rigorously, have one, and then live up to it. Another way to raise your self esteem might be to do things for others. If I look back on my life and, what are the moments that I'm actually proud of? There's very far and few between. And it's not that often. And it's not the things you would expect. It's not the material success. It's not having learned this thing or that. It's when I made a sacrifice for somebody or something that I loved. And that's when I'm actually, ironically, most proud. Now, that's through an explicit mental exercise, but I'll bet you at some level I'm recording that implicitly. So that tells me that even if I am not being loved, then the way to create love is to give love, to express love through
Mm.
sacrifice and through duty. And so I think doing things like that can build up your self-esteem really fast.
It's interesting when you talk about sacrifice because a lot of the time people say, well, I sacrificed so much for my job. It's like, yeah, but that was you sacrificing something that you wanted less for something that you wanted more, as opposed to genuinely taking some sort of cost. And yeah, I wonder whether if self-esteem is you adhering to your internal, your actions and your values aligning, even when it's difficult, or perhaps even more so when it's difficult. I wonder whether there is a price that people who are more introspective, high integrity pay, because you think, well, you've got this heavier set of overheads that you need to pay in some way.
Well, if being ethical were profitable, everybody would do it, right? So, uh, at some level, it does involve a sacrifice, but that sacrifice can also be thought of as you're thinking for the long term rather than the short term. For example, the virtues are the set of virtues is a set of beliefs that if everybody in society followed them as individuals, it would lead to win-win outcomes for everybody. So if I am honest and you are honest, then we can do business more easily. We can interact more easily because we can trust each other. So even though there might be a few liars in the system, as long as there aren't too many liars and too many cheaters, a high trust society where everybody's honest is better off. And I think a lot of the virtues work this way, right? If I don't go around sleeping with your wife and you don't sleep with mine, and if I don't take all the food that's at the table first and so on, then we all get along better and we can play win-win games. In game theory, the most famous game is Prisoner's Dilemma, but that's all about everybody cheating and the Nash equilibrium. The stable equilibrium there is everybody cheats, and the only way you can play a win-win game is if you have long-term iterated moves. But that's not actually the most common game played in society. The most common game played is one called a stag's hunt, where if we cooperate, we can bring down a big stag and both have big dinners. But if we don't cooperate, then we have to go hunt like rabbits and we each have small dinners.
Mm.
So most of and that game has two stable equilibriums, and one could be where we're both hunting the rabbit, and one could be where we're hunting the stag. So the high trust society is a more virtuous society where I can trust you to come hunt the stag with me and show up on time and do the work and divide it up properly. So you want to live in a system where everybody has their own set of virtues and follows them, and then we all win. But I would argue you don't need to do that for sacrifice. You don't need to do that for other people. You can do it just purely for yourself. You will have higher self-esteem. You will attract other high virtue people in
Would
the
I go
system.
on a stag hunt with me?
Correct. Yeah, that's right. And if you're the kind of person who long-term signals ethics and virtues, then you'll attract other people who are ethical and virtuous. Whereas if you are a shark, you will eventually find yourself swimming entirely amongst sharks, and that's an unpleasant existence. But again, this goes back to the equivalent of the marshmallow test. And by the way, the marshmallow test does not replicate. It's
I saw
fake science.
it got
Yeah.
replication crisis
Um,
hard
right.
recently. Yeah.
But it is about trading off the short term for the long term. And so I think for a lot of these so-called virtues, there are long-term selfish reasons to be virtuous.
Yeah. Did you deal with self-doubt in the past? Is that something that was a hurdle for you to overcome?
Yes and no. I think I dealt with self-doubt in the sense that, oh, I don't know what I'm doing and I need to figure it out. Um, but I didn't doubt myself in the way of somebody else knows better than me for me, or that, I'm an idiot or I'm not worthwhile or anything that I guess I had the benefit of I grew up with a lot of love. Like the people around me love me unconditionally. And so that just gave me a lot of confidence. Not the kind of confidence that would say I have the answer,
Mm.
but the kind of confidence that I will figure it out and I know what I want, or only I am a good arbiter of what I want.
Yeah, that level of self-belief, I suppose, allows you to determine what is it that matters to me, my self-esteem. Should I chase this thing or not? I can make a fair judgment on that as opposed to being so swayed. But it's such a good point about even if you think you're not consciously logging the stuff that you're doing, there is some that's in the back of your mind. Was it the daemon? Is that what the ancient Greeks or something used to talk
Yeah,
about?
yeah. Also in computer science, like there's a concept of a daemon, which is a program that's always running in the background. You can't see it.
Okay.
But yeah, it probably comes from the ancient Greek daemon.
Mm.
Uh, but yeah, what you know that you don't even know you know is far greater than what you know. Right? You
Right.
can't even articulate most of the things you know. There are feelings you have that have no words for them. There are thoughts you have that are felt within the body or subconsciously that you never articulate to yourself. You can't articulate the rules of grammar, yet you exercise them effortlessly when you speak. So I would argue that your implicit knowledge and your knowledge that is unknown to yourself is far greater than the knowledge you can articulate and that you can communicate. And so at some level, you're always watching yourself. That's what your consciousness is, right? It's the thing that's watching everything, including your mind, including your body.
Mm.
So if you want to uh, have high self-esteem, then earn your own self-respect.
Mm. I had this idea, the internal golden rule. So the golden rule says treat others the way that
Mm.
you should be treated, you want to be treated. The internal golden rule says treat yourself like others should have treated you.
Mm.
And it was a riposte to maybe people that didn't grow up with unconditional love
Yeah.
in that way.
On the love thing, one of the interesting things about love is you can try to remember the feeling of being loved. So go back to when someone was in love with you or someone did love you and like really remember that feeling, like really sit with it and try to recreate it within yourself. And then go to the feeling of you loving someone and when you were in love. And I'm not even talking about romantic love necessarily, so be a little careful there. I'm talking more about like love for
Can sometimes
a
get complex if you're talking about past romantic love.
right, a sibling or a child or something like that, or a parent. And think about when you felt love towards someone or something. And now, which is better? And I would argue that the feeling of being in love is actually more exhilarating than the feeling of being loved. Being loved is a little cloying, it's a little too sweet. You kind of want to push the person away, it's a little embarrassing. And you know that if that person is too much into it, that you feel constrained. On the other hand, the feeling of being in love is very expansive, it's very open. It actually
Mm.
makes you a better version of yourself, it makes you want to be a better person. And so you can create love anytime you want. It's just that craving to receive it that's the problem.
I went to this daytime house music party in Austin on Saturday. It's called Mushroom Cowboy.
Hmm.
So it's
Microdose the kind of event?
I don't know. I think they're kind of hinting at that, but it's in a coffee. Well, it was outside of a coffee shop off Congress.
Yeah.
So I turn up at 10:30. It started at 10, and the queue is 250 yards long for coffee.
What?
And there must have been 1,500 people there. One guy brought a baguette, was raving with his baguette. There was dogs, pretty sober looking from the outside. Maybe some people smoking weed, but I think this is maybe the beginning of us seeing the end of like hardcore drink culture. If you've looked at how few of Gen Z now drink,
Yes.
it's I think maybe 20%.
The interesting thing is like the theories on why, because there's obviously they have to be theories, right? On we don't actually know exactly. Yeah. One of them is that people, the youth views drinking as like what their parents did, right? So that's like, well, that's
It's naturally uncool.
yeah. Like, my fucking lame ass dad drinks. Like, I'm not interested. And so that's one thing. The other part of it is that this group of people that are the youth right now are so much more informed on what the negative aspects of drinking and what it can do to you, that they're just like, why would I
Subject
consume
myself.
this? Yeah, to something like that. And that they've found this whole other, when you want to take the edge off, there's a lot more options, and it's also a lot more accepted today than it was 20 years ago. Like the idea that you could microdose or do edibles or smoke, or what I mean. And then there's like all the ketamine and everything is like, I have different things that I do when I want to have a recreational good time. And yeah, but it's undeniable that it's definitely way down.
There's more daily users in the US of weed now than there are of alcohol.
Is that for real?
Overtaken, or at least that was the most recent study that I saw. In the US, there are now more daily or near daily marijuana users than daily or near daily alcohol users.
And that thought was just completely like, if you're a teen right now, you don't understand how preposterous that sounds coming from, like, if you were growing up in the 80s and 90s. Like, you were just like, that those were like the fringe people almost. You know what I mean? Like, yes, it was popular, but it was not like a respectable person really wasn't doing that. It was like the arts, it was like hippies and yeah, it was. I mean, people thought of it as like the absolute worst thing that could happen. I mean, people from like my dad's generation likened marijuana to heroin. They didn't even see like really a difference. They're just like, you're a junkie. It's like, but what, for smoking a joint? And like, yeah, that's the way they viewed it. So the fact that it's that accepted now, it's mind blowing to me.
I wonder if some of it is that drinking in the house on your own feels pretty fucking bad.
Yeah.
But smoking in the house on your own, you're like, I'm playing Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Leave me alone. But if
Yeah.
you're 6 beers deep playing Call of Duty,
Yeah.
it's a different story.
Yeah. And you're not playing well at that. You're just like,
I don't know how well people are playing on weed either, but
fuck.
yeah.
Yeah. You're probably more likely to yell out pejorative slurs. Yeah, I think that, I mean, look, smoking is still not good for you. So like, you're probably, but we've discovered that, there's other ways to ingest and like consume. And that's what I think is part of like this youth culture thing about staying away from drinking, is they're like, whatever, I do droplets in this, or I have my gummy or whatever, however they want to consume. But they're definitely not drinking, man. They're not drinking like everybody else before them did.
I used to run nightclubs for ages, and one of the big downturns we've seen has been in nightlife industry. I think the UK is losing a nightclub a week. There's not like an unlimited number of nightclubs. It's like one is shutting down pretty much every single week. And I asked a friend who's still in the industry why he thought that was the case. He said, smartphones, man. Back in the day, you could be as loose as you wanted. You could sort of have that Larry, louty drinking spirit, at least in Britain,
That
where
they
it's a
don't
big
want to be
deal.
recorded.
Of course.
Yeah.
Like if you mess up and like shit yourself in the middle of a nightclub in 2002, it's a story that you can deny the next day.
Yeah.
And then after 6 months, most people have probably forgotten.
Yeah.
Whereas if that happens in 2025, that's now concretized on the internet for everybody to know and bring back up and make memes out of for the rest of time.
I mean, can you imagine like how the pro athletes of the 80s and 90s and early 2000s would just go out and just destroy a woman's hopes and dreams. And then now they're like, everyone's
On edge.
Yeah, everyone's got a phone out. It's just, yeah, it's a totally different. By the way, do you ever think about why? Because I still remember that, like, why was house music and dancing in general so much bigger in Europe than here? People here were never like, let's go dance.
I'm not sure. I mean, I guess why does any scene of any kind appear anywhere? We certainly have in the UK like a good house music culture.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't have much else to do other than go out and party and drink.
Yeah.
If the weather's bad, then we're not going to go out to the ranch. We're not going to go and see the sunset. We're not going to go to the beach because it's fucking freezing cold all the time. So you kind of just zero in on the one thing that's reliable, which is beer.
Yeah.
Pubs or clubs.
Yeah, yeah. No, I just remember like so many times like being in the States and having like European friends who are like, why don't you guys don't like to go dance? And I was like, no, we're not going dancing, bro. like no. And then I would remember like studying abroad and being like, oh yeah, that was like a normal thing. Just go to a place that was just like packed and everybody just loud music dancing. It just was one of those things where I was like, it just didn't translate over here. I mean, there were still clubs, obviously, but it just wasn't the same type of, oh, I just want to go listen to this and literally dance. Like that's what people I felt like were doing a lot more in Europe than here.